Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to the Namaste Experience. It is Wednesday. We're getting closer to our concert for peace tomorrow night. Our friend Gina Salah arrived last evening. She's resting this morning, but she's here. Gina's ready to go, and we're going to be welcomed into the experience of peace through music, through prayer. We're going to make a choice to experience what is real, that which has always been. A choice. And yet, in reality, choice is an illusion. There is no real choice to be made when there is only one option. That's the key. When there's only one option, but you have the idea that there's something to choose, or two or three or more things to choose between, we become confused. And that confusion leads to the manifestation of an entire thought system, an entire world ultimately that seems very, very real. But it all begins with this single idea that I can make a choice between one and one. It's not a choice between one and two or anything like. It's a choice between one and one, but that's not really a choice. It's really a choice between, am I going to see the one or am I going to close my eyes? But just closing my eyes doesn't stop anything. It doesn't change anything. So I had a little song going through my head for a long time yesterday. I thought at first that it was a song that I had written for one of the Course in Miracles workbook lessons, but I realized that it's not a lesson. It's similar, but the song or the chant that was just going through my mind that was leading me into this experience was, there is nothing to choose, nothing to choose. This was just rolling through my mind. There's nothing to choose. Choice is an illusion. And so I finally just sat down with that last night and just really went deep into it. And I realized that the idea that there is a choice to be made, the idea that we can choose anything other than love, is the entire problem. But then again, there's no real problem, because if there's no choice, then there's no problem either. It's all an illusory mirage. It's all a mirage. I see something ahead of myself because I thirst, because I long, and I manifest that in a vision. I have a choice now, but in reality, we never left the garden. So this simple idea that there's nothing to choose, if we just keep going deeper and deeper and deeper with that, as I was finding myself doing last night, it begins to open up into a vast experience of the one. So we're going to talk about that a little bit today from a couple of different perspectives. The first thing I thought I would share is that right before when Advaita was doing his beautiful flute music, I just asked ChatGPT, Sophia, if she had any examples of any well-known spiritual teachers who had ever said the words choice is an illusion or there's nothing to choose. And the first person she offered was Nisargadatta Maharaj, something we talk about a lot. He says, all happens as it must. The idea that you are the doer and chooser is an illusion. The idea that you are the doer or the chooser, that's the illusion. It's maybe even the linchpin illusion. You pull out that idea, that concept that you could choose, and everything else falls into place or crashes to the ground, whichever one you choose. Then there were a couple of other people that he mentioned that I wasn't aware of. Someone named, did I say he? I meant she. As if there's a choice. As if there is really a Sophia That's a she. You see how it works? See how deep it goes? So she offered Ramesh Balaskar. Anybody know who that is? Balzakar. And he said, there is no individual doer. No individual doer. Therefore, no individual choice. The you that you think is making a choice is not real. The you that you think you are is not who you really are. Relax into that. Breathe into that, because that's your freedom. It may at first feel like a collapse in some way. Something has collapsed, my entire reality. But what you find, the only thing that's collapsed is a facade. And what's behind that facade is the real. And that's all they're saying. Once again, there is no individual doer, therefore no individual choice. And then Tony Parsons, it says, Parsons is one of the modern non-dual speakers who uses language almost identical to what you asked. He said, the sense that there is someone choosing is an illusion. The sense that there is someone choosing is an illusion. So we just have to let go. Just free fall into grace. And finally, Rupert Spira. I think most of you know Rupert. He said, the separate self that believes it has free will is itself an illusion. These are great ideas. These are lovely thoughts. But then I have the choice of whether I want to believe them or not. You see how it keeps coming back? Now I choose, well, am I going to believe what Rupert Spira said, or am I going to believe what I've always believed, which is I certainly can make a choice. But at some point in this dream, in this experience, we come to the end of, or the center of the labyrinth. I was actually thinking about this in terms of, and we've used the analogy before, between a maze and a labyrinth. They're very different. If you're walking in a maze, you're constantly making choices. Do I go left or do I go right? Some of those choices lead to dead ends. Other choices lead to the release, to the final exit of the maze. But in a labyrinth, there's no real choice, is there? You just have to keep walking. Keep putting one foot in front of the other and keep moving forward. And as you do, just following the guide, following the path, you end up in the center. And that's where you are now. The truth is, you never left the center ultimately. But we find ourselves in this labyrinth, walking. No choice. So this is something that impacted my mind very deeply when obviously I knew intellectually there is no choice. There's nothing that the separate self can choose that's real. But to just keep going into that, and then notice when I make a choice, because you're going to do it 1,000 times today, realize that every one of those choices is ultimately meaningless. So I wrote a little something that I thought I would share, and then I wrote a parable. So I'm going to share them both. So the line that kept moving through me was, there is nothing to choose unless you're choosing no thing. Unless you're choosing no thing, no dash thing. But ultimately there is nothing. Nothing for you to choose. The moment we believe that we must choose between this condition and that one, this person or that one, success or failure, then we've already accepted the premise that life is divided into opposing realities. That's the whole premise of the egoic mind, that everything is divided into opposing realities. Most of all, that these oppositions are real. Every choice you make is revealing something that is truly real, as opposed to the choice itself. The idea that you could make a choice itself is not. So once again, you're choosing no thing. Yet, the spiritual revelation is that reality is indivisible, undividable. The infinite does not contain alternatives. It expresses itself in completeness. I love that. The infinite expresses itself in completeness. Therefore, the true act of spiritual living is not choosing between appearances, but quietly releasing the belief that appearances possess power. That appearances possess power. In that inner stillness, we do not grasp for outcomes. We rest in the presence that already contains fulfillment. Maybe you're beginning to feel a sense of lightness, or maybe a subtle sense of freedom, just in the idea that you don't have to make a choice. Let the pressure go. There's nothing that is forcing you to do anything except to simply be. To be as you are known by God, that you remain as God created you. That's it. And if you want to look at A Course in Miracles, it's going to say that over and over and over again, because that's your only choice. All it will say ultimately is relax into that you are as God created you. Stop thinking that you ever had a choice to be something else. You didn't. You seemed to have manifested an entire experience, a life, a world where you certainly can choose, and your choices can have deep consequences if you don't make the right choice. You see how right and wrong fall into place? Duality. And so we manifest an entire dualistic world where this makes perfect sense until you come to Namaste Village or anywhere else and you realize, nope, makes no sense. And when you get that, and I know that this light has flashed in all of your minds in one way or another, when you really get that, and that holy instant collapses inward, and you realize, I have always been who I am. There was never a choice in being something else. I am as God created me, whole and complete. There's such freedom and a joy that is otherworldly because it is not of the world of choice. You're no longer choosing, you're just allowing. You move from choosing to allowing. Okay, let me go a little further. To choose no thing is not to fall into emptiness, but to withdraw belief from the restless mind that insists something must be gained, fixed, or improved. Something must be gained, fixed, or improved. That's the whole world right there. That's the world in just only a few words. Something here has to be gained. Something must be improved or fixed. Otherwise, why am I here? Why am I here? When we become still enough to desire nothing for ourselves, the divine activity that has always been functioning begins to reveal itself. The divine activity begins to reveal itself. Grace does not arrive because we selected the correct path. Let me say that again. Grace does not arrive because you selected the correct path. It unfolds because we have ceased interfering with it. We get out of the way. In that surrender, we discover that harmony was never the result of personal choice, but the natural radiation of the infinite expressing itself as your very being. Radiation. I love that word. We radiate this reality, this feeling, this energy. We become a radiating sun of the true, of the real. There is nothing to choose. only love. And that's not a choice. That's just what is. There's no God outside you. There's no heaven or hell outside you. If you're a good boy or a bad girl, none of that matters. It sure seems like it does, though. Just look at the news. But it doesn't matter. Everything is falling into place just as it needs to. Which leads me to my parable. And of course, as I do with every parable, there's the central character of the great mother, the Hindu mystic living in the Himalayan mountains in her ashram. So this is a parable about the fact that there's nothing to choose. High in the Himalayan foothills, where the wind moved softly through the cedar trees, the mother lived in a small ashram of white stone and quiet gardens. People traveled from distant villages and cities to sit with her. One afternoon, a young merchant arrived. Weary from the road and burdened by worry, bowing before her, he said, "Mother, I am tormented by choices. Every path before me seems uncertain. If I choose one thing, I lose another. Tell me, how do I choose correctly so that my life will be blessed?" How many of us have asked questions like that? How do I choose correctly so that my life will be blessed? The mother looked at him with gentle eyes and motioned for him to sit beside the small stream that ran through the garden. For a long time, she said nothing. The man waited impatiently, watching the water move around the stones and the fallen leaves. Then at last she said, "Tell me, does this stream choose which way to flow?" The merchant shook his head. "No, mother, it simply follows the path that is there." She smiled. "And yet, it reaches the river, and the river reaches the sea." "But mother," the man protested, "my life is full of decisions. I must choose my work, my home, my future." And then mother picked up a dry leaf and placed it on the surface of the water. It drifted gently downstream. You believe your life is made of choices because you believe you are separate from the one who lives it. You believe that your life is made of choices because you believe you are separate from the one who lives it. She said softly. But the divine life does not stand before many doors deciding which one to open. It simply expresses itself the way it appears. The man said quietly as the leaf disappeared around a bend in the stream. "Then what should I do?" he asked. The mother closed her eyes for a moment, as though listening to something deeper than the wind in the trees. "Choose no thing," she said at last. "Lay down the mind that believes it must control the journey. When you stop choosing between the shadows of the world, you will discover the presence that is already living your life. And that presence, like the stream, has always known the way to the ocean." The merchant remained by the stream long after mother had returned to the ashram, and for the first time since he could remember, he felt no urgency to decide anything at all. In that stillness, something within him began to move, quietly, naturally, like water finding its way home. So there's nothing for you to choose. Just be who you are. Just throw yourself into that river and know with complete certainty that the current knows which way to go. that it will take you effortlessly to the infinite ocean of grace. You don't have to fight against the current. You don't have to cling to a tree at the side of the river. Just let go and let it take you. So, good morning to you, Vicki. Let's hear what you have to share about letting the current take hold and lead us home.
Oh, thank you, Brother James. Thank you for such a brilliant morning and sharing. So this is what it brought me. And Joel Goldsmith is the one that gives the language the best for me. We're here to be beholders, to behold the life of love, of grace that we are part of. And just like in the parable, when Mother is telling him that his desires for one thing or the other are the obstruction, it occurred to me that the deeper desire that we're not in touch with, and that as we continue to open up to the presence that is what we are, is the underwriting guilt. It's the cause of the idea of choice. That whatever is driving us isn't that we want to not love. There's a driving force of guilt that I think is the linchpin. That when we are open, and instead of being out of the way by not pursuing desires, it doesn't mean desires don't come to us. We will have desires. The choice, if there is a choice, is to allow them. This is about allowing rather than resisting or denying. It's not a path of resistance, and it's not a path of giving things up. This is a path of welcoming and allowing and noticing, beholding. And if we are honest with ourselves, what seems to come is some place where we feel guilty. And guilt is what has been driving us, the cause of this idea of choice, of separate will, of love or fear. If we throw ourselves into innocence, the way we talk about throwing ourselves into love, if we throw ourselves into innocence, holy innocence, and abide there, abiding isn't a choice, it's a recognition. So this is the land of allowing and welcoming, beholding, recognizing, resting, relaxing. And I have found for me, and I saw it as you were speaking, some guilt thoughts. Oh, I should have done this, or I'm guilty for that. I ran away on this one. Oh no, I'm going to have to change that. No, in the present moment, by letting that guilt come to the surface without doing anything with it, it's released. That's the miracle. And it's not magic, it's a miracle. The unconscious guilt that's driving us stays driving us until it comes to the surface and we recognize our innocence and each other's innocence. And then innocence is the language of love. It's the language of spirit. It's the language of the flow. It's where we are learning and helping each other stabilize in staying out of the way. That's what we're doing. We're staying out of the way. So that's my 2 cents, Brother James. Thanks, everybody. I love you all.
Thank you so much. Beautiful. Wow. I think you are spot on. It's that unconscious guilt that keeps us from seeing that there's nothing for us to choose. There's nothing to choose between. But the idea that there's some primordial guilt, there is that the original sin, as it would show the story of Adam and Eve and many other creation stories, there was something that happened at the very beginning that never really happened. And if we just realize that it never really happened, just let that guilt come up to the surface, let it dissolve, this gets very simple. So, with that, Penny Honey, I'll let you take us home all the way.
All the way. Okay, that was a little bit of a stretch for me to think that I really don't have a choice. That was a little bit of a stretch for me. So I'm sitting over there going, oh, now I have to process this in 20 minutes. That'd be a choice. That'd be a choice. What I noticed in that, coming to that, or approaching, I won't say that I'm completely there, but approaching that concept, right? That there's only one choice. I think that what happened for me was I began to realize that when I have the illusion of the power of choice, then I feel in control. I feel like I have a say in this. And then I had to go down the road of that I. Who is that has a say in this? Oh, that's the divine that I am. Oh, the truth is, I don't have to make a choice because I already did. I'm right here realizing I am one with the divine, given to me in grace, living from a place that even if I want to live in the illusion that I am making choices, that I am held in grace right in the midst of that. And you know, the cool thing about getting a hold of that idea that we don't make choices, I had this sense of freedom because it means I can't make a wrong one. I also came to this as I was sitting there. And I love that thought that grace does not require anything of me in order to be present in my life. And I realized if I can get a hold of this concept, that I don't have to make choices and there is no choice to make, that means I can also see that when I want to defend against you, or I feel that you have done me wrong because you made a choice to hurt me, that doesn't exist. I am free from needing to blame or shame myself or anyone else when I remember that I live in grace and there's no choice to make. Okay, I'm on my way to this thought process and I'll walk with you that direction.
Yes. We are with you, Penny Honey. We are right next to you, singing and dancing all the way into heaven. Let's take a deep breath and feel that radiation, that holy grace that fills us no matter what choice we make. So make what choices you want. The point is it doesn't matter whether you're going to have caffeinated or decaffeinated coffee. You know, that seems like a choice, but who cares? It doesn't matter. Just stay in tune with that, the foundation of grace within you that made the choice of love long before you can ever remember and makes it still. And it is to that choice, the only real choice, that we say, Amen, 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 e punto. Period. Much love to you all. Have an amazing day, and we'll see you tomorrow. Namaste.
Thank you.